That was the term that I coined in second grade, and when I was 8 years old. You know, so people would see my hat, and they would usually say either, "Man, that's a cool hat," or they would, ask me about it. "Hey, why do you wear that?" So then I would go into a conversation about the small Islamic knowledge that I had as a child. Now, as a young adult, I look back on that time, and I realize that while I was different from almost everybody that I met, I never really experienced any sort of backlash because of those differences. And by the grace of the Almighty, to this day, I have never experienced any acts of hatred or bigotry against me, nor have I been ostracized in any way. Even with this outward expression of my religion through my hat and through hopefully my humbleness and my ideals that I can carry. That's why I consider myself lucky. I guess it was the fact that, I was 4'6", and 72 pounds, in which people realized that I posed no threat to anybody anyways. Unfortunately, however, a lot of Muslims are not that lucky. Many Muslims around the world, including those in the United States and the West, are subject to hatred, bigotry, and are ostracized by the societies that they belong to. Of course, part of the problem is the idea that Muslims are not actively doing their job to help educate the general public about Islam. So I hope this event tonight is one step forward in the right direction. However, a large part of the attempt by Muslims to become an active part of the American society is hindered by misconceptions people hold about Islam. Many people perceive Islam to be a threat to the norm of American society, a threat to the principles of what it means to be an American. The question is, are these statements valid? And that leads us to the topic of this evening: Islamic threat to the West, myth or reality? So hopefully this evening, our esteemed guest speaker will be able to answer this question and help us all gain a better understanding of the religion of Islam. To introduce our guest speaker, I am honored to call upon Dr. Vasudha Narayanan, distinguished professor and chair of the Department of Religion at UF. Without her and the cooperation of Dr. Gwendolyn Sahara Simmons, professor of Islamic Studies here at UF, this event this evening would not be possible. So with that said, I give you Dr. Narayanan.
Good evening. On behalf of Accent, Islam on Campus in the Department of Religion, it's my pleasure to welcome Professor Esposito and all of you this evening. Salam alaikum. Professor Esposito is University Professor of Religion and International Affairs, Islamic Studies, and the founding director of Prince Al-Walid bin Talal Center for Muslim-Christian Understanding at Georgetown University. A consultant to the Department of State, as well as corporations, universities, and the media worldwide, Dr. Esposito specializes in political Islam from North Africa to Southeast Asia, and religion and international affairs. He's the former president of MESA, Middle Eastern Studies Association, and North America and the American Council for the Study of Islamic Societies. Professor Esposito is the recipient of the American Academy of Religion's 2005 Martin Marty Award. I remember that. For public understanding of religion, and of Pakistan's most esteemed prize, the Quaid-e-Azam Award for outstanding contributions in Islamic studies. He is the editor-in-chief of 4 volumes of the Oxford Encyclopedia of Modern Islamic World, the Oxford History of Islam, the Oxford Dictionary of Islam, and the Islamic World, past, and present. He's also the author. The website will tell you he's the author of about 33 books, but I found out it's close to 44. So it's a very, very impressive list. And many of them, like Islam, the Straight Path, I think some of them are going into the 4th edition right now. Right? Mm-hmm. In fact, You can't find a university in the country, I would say, that is not, where the book of Professor Esposito is not being used at any given time. You always find it. Relations between Christians, Jews, and Muslims in Europe and Americas continue to be a critical social issue in the public square. Media and government policies shape general imaginings of the other. One organization in particular, that's the Georgetown Center for Muslim Christian Understanding, stands out in its continued effort to bring different religious bodies together. Professor Esposito has written extensively about the various ways the powerful symbolism of jihad dominates modern Muslim politics, to an extent unparalleled in history. He writes that, and I quote, "Jihad today has become an evocative symbol and a rallying cry for mobilization in holy and unholy wars, in wars of resistance and liberation, as well as in global terrorism." He argues that the success of the Afghan enterprise created a new global jihad sentiment embodied in Arabs and other Muslims who fought in Afghanistan, and a sense of solidarity among them. He doesn't mince words. He says that this struggle spawned an alliance that hijacked jihad, hijacked Islam. September 11th, he says, marked the global expansion of Al-Qaeda's unholy war of terror to the West. The focus, he says in his writings, should be on peace. The Quran and the Sunnah provide a theology for peace, for living in a world of diverse nations and people. Highlighting the contrast between the different kinds of jihad, non-violent and violent, he quotes a very popular hadith. He says that when the Prophet returned from battle, he told his followers, "We return from the lesser jihad to the greater jihad. And the greater jihad, the more difficult one, is a struggle against one's ego, selfishness, greed, and evil." In his writings, as this evening, he's not afraid to ask to take on the big questions. Is there a clash of civilization between Islam and the West? Is there a direct connection between Islam, anti-Americanism, and terrorism? Are Islam and modernity incompatible? Bill Moyers called Dr. Esposito the world's most respected scholar of Islam. Whether one agrees with Dr. Esposito's conclusions or not, what we all recognize is that his is a voice of scholarship, his is a voice of integrity. And it's our privilege to have him with us this evening. Join me in welcoming Professor Esposito.
Thank you very much. That was a wonderful introduction. I'm glad I wrote it before we had dinner tonight. I really appreciate it. The good news is that I made it here, despite the fact that my first flight was delayed, and second flight, we were told that the plane would not be taking off, but they found another plane. The bad news is that we all miss reruns of NCIS, which is, I only did 3 of them last night, so I'm kind of having withdrawal tonight. I'd like to thank all those that invited me here, in particular the MSA and the Department of Religion. I'm particularly happy to be here because, as many of you know, the Department of Religion here is one of the outstanding religion departments in the United States. And the two of us happen to she's disappeared. But anyway, the two of us have been members of 2 of the top meetings, meeting groups in the profession. Let me give you the bottom line on what I'm going to say, okay? So there's no sense in mincing words.